We have a lot to get to with the Sunday Roundtable this morning. Joining us this morning, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Virginia Buckingham. It's great to have you. I love saying Virginia.
I know you do. I like how you say it.
It's classic, Virginia. So let's start with Richie Neal. He talked about the debt limit this morning. What sticks out in the conversation about that to you, Marianne?
I want to read a Richie Neal quote. A vote on raising the debt ceiling has never been held hostage by extreme ideologues that reject compromise and threaten to take our economy to the brink. But political partisans have been playing games with the full faith and credit of the United States of America, and in the process damaging our reputation and standing around the world, said Richie Neal in 2011.
2011.
Wow. Here we are again. Okay, and that's what's happening. And I will just remind people, the threat, the last time we had a Democratic president and Republicans did this, we used to have a AAA bond rating. We've never recovered that since. It's in the 12 years since, and people are threatening that again, and the extremists are even more extreme.
Jenny?
Well, interestingly, he didn't take that tone this time, this morning with this show. He, I think, is the last grown up in Washington, and he's been down this road, and I thought that he had a very measured tone. He's welcoming the negotiations that are starting to happen now, and he knows there's going to be a compromise, and that's how this is all going to end.
All right. Well, there was a lot to unpack from that CNN town meeting with former President Trump last week in New Hampshire. One of the more talked about elements, the audience reaction to his performance. Here was the response when former President Trump attacked the reputation of E. Jean Carroll after a jury found him liable for sexual abuse.
What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings him up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President, can I
think of it.
I know you're recounting what she said, but Mr. President.
There was a big applause.
Laughter and applause.
Laughter, applause, and we did see that all night. Ginny, do you think this is where the New Hampshire GOP is?
No, I don't. And I think if you asked those people in the room individually what they thought about that particular situation, it wouldn't have been a laughing matter. I think that what they were responding to is that the irreverent Trump, the anti-elitist Trump that they loved in 2016 was the exact same guy, despite all that's happened up on that stage. And that's what they were applauding. And that's a word of warning, I think, to the Democrats and my party that this guy still captures people's imaginations.
Oh, what do you think, Marianne?
The New Hampshire Republican Party is Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is the New Hampshire Republican Party, and every Republican, too. I mean, that's what we saw. And every Republican now has to be held accountable for every syllable and every lie he told that night. And not what was a Trump town hall. It was a Trump rally. That was filled with Trump supporters. I mean, that was like malpractice on the part of CNN. But every Republican now has to be held to account for not only E. Jean Carroll and what he said about Caitlin Collins and what he said about the Capitol Police officer that he called a thug, but a national abortion ban, pardons for January 6th insurrectionists, all of it. They own it.
Do you think there were Republicans in that room that felt a little uncomfortable about that?
No, or they wouldn't have been in the room. I think they came to see the entertainer that he was in 2016. That's not what we want in our president, but they came to see a show.
Entertainer?
Yeah.
It's a presidential candidate.
And there's nothing entertaining about that. And by the way, it was the New Hampshire Republican Party who did the invitations to that event, not CNN. That was the problem.
Voters hate elitists. They hate Washington, D.C. They see him as their fighter against all of that elitism. And that's the reality. We can deny it if we want, but that is the reality.
CNN's decision to go ahead with the town hall raises many questions. The moderator, Caitlin Collins, in my opinion, I thought she did her best to real-time fact check. The president had no time for facts. He just kept moving and moving and moving and moving. So what was the point?
I think the real point here is Donald Trump's desperation for self-preservation. That's what this is about. This is a caged man in a corner who is trying to avoid more lawsuits, more charges, more accountability for his many misdeeds. And he will do anything and everything to avoid that. So he wants to go back to the White House, not to help you, me, or anybody else, but to save himself and to turn our democracy into a dictatorship to save himself. That's what's on display.
I would say that the many candidates who are running for the Republican nomination need to take this lesson from this. Voters don't want the same old, same old. They don't want the elitism that in the looking down on regular voters that we typically get from candidates. If there's a candidate that can pick up that mantle without the rest of the garbage, then Joe Biden has a race.
All right. The woman who was struck by a falling utility box at the T's Harvard stop filed a lawsuit last week. Lawyers for the Harvard grad students cited our interview here on OTR with Governor Maura Healey last Sunday in making their case for neglect. The T has apologized and says it's working to ensure safety for all. Now, the governor called for transparency in our interview, and I wonder, are we beginning to see that, Marianne?
It's yet another good first step in the right direction by Maura Healey and the T. The real test certainly is going to be safety and reliability and service. That's the real test. But I think transparency and all of those things that have to be done go hand in hand.
All right. What do you think, Ginny?
Well, there was a report in the paper in the Globe at the end of last week about a no-bid contract that was given by the Secretary of Transportation to Bill Bratton's firm. That's not transparent. That was a warning sign to me. I like what they've done otherwise, but something else they need to keep an eye on.
On Beacon Hill, that there is a bill to create a whole new state agency to oversee the MBTA instead of the Department of Public Utilities. The Inspector General agrees. Is the DPU responsible for doing too much? And Ginny, is another government agency required?
God, no. Please, no. I don't.
Legit.
I
Yeah.
don't think so. I think fix what's broken, but that doesn't mean add more layers.
What do you think, Marianne?
I think DPU is not equipped to do this, and they never have been, and that's the problem. So I think letting the Healey administration take a new approach, new people in place, new processes, new procedures is the best way to go.
And supporters do mention that this is the kind of thing that other states do. New York does have its own board where it has a multitude of people appointing members.
We got plenty of boards right now,
We
and
do
new
have a
people
lot
on
of
them.
boards.